Well, greetings everybody again to our recital of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Srimad Bhagavat Mahapurana, as it's sometimes called. So anyway, we're on the fourth canto, the fourth skanda, and we've had the incredible episode of the destruction of Daksha's sacrifice by Virabhadra, and who had offended Mahadeva and his own daughter Sati, who immolated herself in the fire. Anyway, we read all that. Then we had Dhruva's story, his meditation on Narayana and his vision of Narayana and his later exploits, his battle with the Guyakas, and his reign is described, and his posterity is described thereafter. And having come down a generation or two, we come to the king Anga, and he had a son called Vena. So that's where we're at now. Now, this Vena was a very bad character, um, a tyrant, but he's not yet been made the king. But because the son was so evil, the father, Anga, left the kingdom. So that's where we're up to. So before we begin, Mangala Charana will be said. Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tang Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Visakhan Vitangscha Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Deving Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Nigama Kalpataror Galitam Phalam Shukamukadamrita Dravasayutam Pibata Bhagavatam Rasamalayam Muhuraho Rasika Bhuvi Bhavukaha. Ripe fruit from scripture's wish-fulfilling tree, distilled from Sukha's lips eloquently. Drink deep this Bhagavat, pure rapture's store, ye connoisseurs on earth forevermore. So Canto 4, Chapter 14. Maitreya said, Bhrigu and other rishis, finding that without a king the people were relapsing into animality, called the mother of Vena to find a solution. For the good of the land, they installed Vena as king, in spite of the disapproval of the ministers. Hearing that fierce Vena had become king, all the dacoits and brigands in the country disappeared out of fright, just as rats disappear before a serpent. After being enthroned, Vena considered himself endowed with the powers of all the guardian deities. Becoming extremely conceited and proud, he began to insult even holy men and men of great status. Blind with pride and without self-restraint, he traveled all over the world in his chariot, spreading terror everywhere, like an elephant freed from the hook. With the beating of drums, he announced, O Brahmanas, you shall henceforth perform no sacrifices. You shall not give gifts, nor shall you offer oblations in fire. Thus he forbade all acts of piety. Seeing the wickedness of Vena and the misery that befell society consequently, many great sages assembled out of pity for the world and deliberated thus: Alas, like unto a piece of wood burning at both ends, the people are suffering the depredations not only of thieves, but also of the king, who is supposed to be their protector. For fear of anarchy, Vena was made king, though he was not fit for it. Now that king himself has become the source of fear of the people, how can we secure the good of all beings? To feed and nourish a serpent with milk is dangerous even to the man who does so, as the son of Sunita, Vena is by nature brutish. In spite of this, we made him king in the belief that he would protect the people. But now he seems to be bent on ruining the people. As we are responsible for this, his sins will partially affect us also. Let us try and see whether he can be reformed by advice. We installed him on the throne, knowing the wicked turn of his nature. The unrighteous man that he is, he may reject the good and reasonable advice that we want to give him. In that case, we shall burn him up by our power. He is already a lost soul on account of his transgressions against the people. Resolving thus, the sages, without showing their displeasure, outwardly approached Vena and spoke the following conciliatory words. The sages said, "O great king, please listen attentively to what we want to communicate to you. By so doing, you will gain longevity, prosperity, fame, and strength. The righteous actions that men do by word, mind, and body and intellect enable them to attain to the joys of the heavenly regions if they are prompted by desires, and to the eternal state of mukti if they are without desires. O brave one, may you not be devoid of virtue, dharma, which is reflected in the people's welfare. Good fortune deserts a king who is not righteous. A king will attain to joy in this world and the next if he protects his subjects from oppressive officers and thieves and collects taxes in accordance with the scriptural law. In whatever countries people worship the Lord through the conscientious discharge of the duties accruing to them, as set forth in the sacred law of Varnashrama, with the rulers of such countries who thus enforce his commandments, the Lord, who is the creator of all beings, will be highly pleased. If he, the master of divinities that control the destiny of the world, is pleased with one, there is nothing that one cannot attain. All the worlds and their protecting divinities make offerings unto him. You should encourage those of your subjects who perform for your prosperity various kinds of yajnas in honor of him who is the master of the worlds and their presiding deities, and who is of the form of all the Vedas, of all the articles of the sacrifice, and of all tapas, austerities. On account of the yajnas that the Trisporn in your territories perform, the Supreme Hari will be pleased, and he being pleased, all the various devas who are only parts of Hari will also be pleased, and they will bestow all prosperity on you and your country. On no account should these devas be outraged. Vena replied, it is a pity that you mistake your own vice to be virtue. For overlooking me, the king from whom you derive your livelihood, you go another master like an unchaste woman after her paramour. Those who insult the king, who is none but the Lord in that form, will never attain to felicity here or in the hereafter. Who is this Yagya Purusha? The Lord worships all Yagyas to whom you direct your devotion as harlots do towards their lovers. In the king is present all the devas like Vishnu, Shiva, Brahma, Indra, Soma, Agni, Varuna, and all others who are supposed to bless and punish mortals. In fact, the king is the embodiment of all the devas. Therefore, O Brahmanas, without further ado, offer your worship to me, the king. Pay my taxes without stinginess. Who is there to be adored other than myself? Maitreya said, thus, that luckless, perverted, and sinful Vena did not heed the words of advice tendered to him by the rishis. When the rishis were moreover insulted by the pretentious scholarship of Vena, and when they found that their noble prayer for the welfare of the world as a whole was rejected, their anger was aroused, and they said, let him be destroyed, let him perish. He is by nature a perverted monster. To let him live is to allow the world to be reduced to ashes. An evil person like him deserves not to sit on the throne, for see how shamelessly he insults even Mahavishnu, the object and the Lord of all worship. Who else but this Vena, this perverted fellow, would indulge in such derogatory words against the Lord by whose blessing he has attained to such prosperity? The rishis, who now resolved to destroy him, expressed their anger manifestly, and they, by the utterance of the mantra, Hum, killed him, who was already all but dead, owing to his traducing the Supreme Lord. After the rishis had departed to their ashramas, Sunita, the sorrow-stricken mother of Vena, had his dead body preserved with the help of mantras and embalming agents. Meanwhile, the rishis, after taking their bath in the Saraswati and performing their offerings in the sacred fire, were sitting on the river bank and discussing spiritual matters. Noting many portents indicative of misfortune for the land at large, they began to question among themselves whether there was no way of protecting the land, now bereft of its ruler, from the depredations of thieves and outlaws. While the rishis were thus deliberating, they noticed clouds of dust rising at some distance, an evidence of the robbers who were running and looting all over the land. When there ceased to be a king to rule the land, persons bent on robbery and murder had commenced to afflict it. Plunder and rapine increased every day, and the contrary grew weak due to the lack of an executive authority. Though aware of the harm that could result from this chaos, and though they had the power to remedy it, they did nothing at first. A Brahmin might be even-sighted and calm in disposition, but if he cannot sympathize with the afflicted, all the merits of his austerity comes to naught, like water kept in a broken pot. Brahmana samadrikshanto dinanam samupekshaka swabhati brahmatasyapi bhinna bandhatpayo yatha. I'll say it again. A Brahmana might be even-sighted and calm in disposition, but if he cannot sympathize with the afflicted, all the merits of his austerity comes to naught, like water kept in a broken pot. The line of the Rajarshi Anga did not deserve to become extinct, for it had produced many great and devoted kings in the past. Thinking of this, the rishis churned the thigh of the dead Vena, whereupon a dwarfish person came out of it. He was black like a crow. All the parts of his body, including his arms and legs, were short. His jaws were broad. His nose was flat. His eyes red and his hair coppery. He approached and made obeisance to the rishis and asked them what they expected him to do. Get ready, next reader. They told him, Nishedha, sit down. So he became Nishada, or the progenitor of the forest tribe. As the dwarf was born heir to all the sins of Vena, his descendants became an uncivilized tribe wandering in the hills and forests. Thus ends chapter 14 in the great and glorious Bhagavat Purana, otherwise known as the Paramahansa Samhita. And now I'll hand over to Mathura, who will continue.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. What a fascinating story. Always found that. Churning a thigh. Wow. Book 4, Canto 4, Discourse 15, The Descent and Coronation of King Prithu. Maitreya continued. Then again, the powerful sages treated with rubbing the arms of that lifeless king who had no issue, and out of the electrifying friction, there sprang a couple, a male and a female person, in perfect harmony of sex relation. They far-seeing sages who were enlightened with Vedic knowledge and were masters of Vedic divine doctrines beheld the couple born and comprehended that the two were part manifestations of the Supreme Person Divine, who is omnipotent and omniscient and possesses all prosperity and glory. They became exceedingly happy to see the conjugate persons and said, this male person is a part manifestation of that aspect of the all-pervading, all-knowing, and all-powerful Lord Divine which protects the world. And this female person is a ray of the goddess of beauty, bliss, and prosperity, and hence never gets disunited from the Supreme Person. Of this couple, the male person will be the first of kings on earth, a mighty king to glorify the name and fame of every king in future, whose name will be Prithu, as the splendor of his name will shine far and wide. This other is a shining queen. Her name is Archie, an embodied process of radiation. Her finely set teeth are an indication of her firmly formed, faithful character. Her ornaments are emblems of her golden and gem-like virtues. Her feelings and thoughts are all ennobling, as hers is an ascending spirit. It seems as if she would outshine her husband. Thus, an inalienable power and part of the Supreme Law Divine called itself into being in space and time on earth to save the inhabitants, the human beings, from sins and sufferings. This other, the queen, devoted to him, the goddess of inexhaustible wealth and prosperity, also came into the world as inseparable from him. Maitreya went on. The Brahmanas extolled Prithu, while the demigods known as Gandharvas were singing songs. The chief of them, the Siddhas, were releasing showers of Elysian flowers. The heavenly damsels were dancing, all for joy at the advent of Prithu. The sounds of conches, trumpets, timbrels, and drums spread vibrating in heaven, as all celestial sages and orders of divine fathers came down to the place to pay their respects to the king where he stood. Brahma, the adorable lord of the world, himself came at the head of the greatest of the gods. Brahma, the adorable lord of the world, himself came at the head of the greatest of the gods. Notice some sign of the divine wield of the mighty mace in the right hand of Prithu, and lotus marks on the sides of his soles of his feet, and recognize him to be a personality of Sri Hari, the Supreme Lord. He also noticed that Prithu bore on the palm the sacred sign of a disc unbroken by linear line, indicating an unconquerable sphere of power. I knew him to be a ray of the Lord of Lords. The Brahmana priests who had their religious culture founded on the rites and ceremonies dealt with in the Vedas undertook to perform the holy ceremony of Prithu's installation. People brought from all sides multivarious things necessary for the coronation. Then came with presents the offerings, the deities presiding over Then came with their presents and offerings the deities presiding over rivers, seas, and mountains, the sky and the earth, as well as serpents, birds, stags, and cows. When he was bathed with holy waters for installation as King of Kings, arrayed in royal raiments and richly adorned with bright ornaments, and stood with Archie, his queen consort, equally adorned, he shone like a rival of fire itself. The god of wealth, O valiant Vidurya, gave him a splendid throne of gold as a present. Varuna, the divinity of the seas, brought to him the brilliant present of a wonderful umbrella dripping with water and radiating beams like the moon. Wah. The god of the winds gave him 2 fans made of the tuft of hair on the tail of wild cows. The god of virtue came with the present of a garland of flowers, the very embodiment of celebrity. Indra, the king of heaven, came to present him with an excellent crown, and the god of mortality and moral control honored him with a scepter by which to control all. Brahma, the lord of creation, brought for him an armor representing Veda, all-comprehensive knowledge, and the goddess of learning, a necklace of unique make. Sri Hari, the Supreme Lord Divine, gave him his divine disc bearing the name of Sudarshan, and his consort, the goddess of wealth, beauty, and bliss, favored him with never-failing prosperity. The great god, whose function is to destroy and absorb the world at the end, honored him with a broad sword bearing 10 brilliant marks of the moon, and his consort, Durga, with a shield bearing 100 marks of the moon. The moon, the deity presiding over the lunar sphere, brought him immortal horses made of the substance of nectar. An exceedingly beautiful chariot was given him by Shwasta, a radiant agent of the sun god. The god of fire gave him a bow made of the horns of the goat and the cow, and the sun god gave him arrows shining like his rays. The goddess of the earth brought for him a pair of wooden sandals possessing the mysterious power of carrying him as soon as he placed his feet upon them, wherever he should want to go. The goddess of the celestial regions gave him the privilege of getting celestial flowers every day. The sky-ranging spirits imparted to him the arts of acting and dancing, music, vocal and instrumental, and the occult way of disappearance. The sages and seers brought for him blessings that were sure to come true, and the deity of the ocean brought for him a conch that was his own progeny. Seas, mountains, and rivers offered to allow passages for his chariot. Then a herald, a bard, and a panegyrist started singing songs of praise to the mighty monarch. When Prithu, the powerful king, the offspring of Vena, came to know that they had come to praise him, he smiled and made these utterances with a voice as deep as the thunder of clouds. Prithu said, "Oh, you noble minstrel, herald, and singer of praises, praises may be due to me when my virtues and performances will be known among men. Where is the ground at present for praises being addressed to me? It is not desirable that your eulogies should prove untrue in my case. Therefore, at some future date, when we attain distinctions worthy of being heard and spoken of, you, who are masters of fine expressions, may praise us to your heart's fill. Respectful persons do not let minstrels extol ordinary men like me of the recent times, it being open to them to glorify the greatness of God, whose shining attributes no darkness can touch. If you urge that it is possible for me to prove the existence of such and such virtues in my contact, and therefore you should extol me for the same, I do not fall in with your view. Who would have himself extolled by bards for the qualities which are non-existent in him, even though he may be able to manifest remarkable virtues in himself? Such and such qualities, it may be hers, are likely to fall to his lot, but to get oneself praised thus on mere possibilities is to be an object of people's ridicule. A fool, however, will not understand the banter. Whoever's going to come next, be ready. Noble-minded persons shrink from their own praise, even when they are praised for qualities confirmed by conduct and known to all, just as those who are truly modest and supremely generous do not appreciate sincere praise for any reproachful show of valor. As for ourselves, O noble bard, we are yet unknown in the world. Hence, we find no reason to get ourselves celebrated by the songs of praise for greatest performances. Such self-proclamation is only worthy of a child. Thus ends the 15th discourse, forming part of the narrative of King Prithu in Book 4 of the great and glorious Bhagavat Purana, otherwise known as the Paramahansa Samhita. Dina, Mark?
I'll go.
Oh, can I? Of course, please. I forgot. Please.
Okay. Skanda 4, chapter 16. Maitreya said, directed by the sages, the singers and panegyrists, who were highly pleased with the king's words, began to sing his praise. The singers said, we are indeed incapable of describing the greatness of one like you, who is none other than the Supreme Being, who has incarnated himself by association with his Yoga Maya. Even Brihaspati cannot describe the prowess of this one who is born of a limb of Vena. Still, at the prompting of the rishis, we are going to describe with great regard the glorious future achievements of Prithu, who is a partial incarnation of Sri Hari, to the extent that the instruction of our teachers has made them known to us. He will be the noblest among the upholders of Dharma, himself following the dictates of Dharma. He will preserve its regulations and conventions and punish its transgressors. Singly, he contains in himself all the Lokapalas, the custodian deities, protecting the world, and embodies their powers to work for the welfare of both worlds in accordance with the needs of the time. Like the sun, he is impartial to all, taking wealth from them by his power and releasing it afterwards for their welfare, as the sun does in regard to water. Endowed with immense sympathy for the sufferings of others and possessed of forbearance like the earth, he will be capable of pardoning even people who rise against him. When, by withholding rain, Indra subjects people to suffering, he will protect them like a real leader. For he is Sri Hari himself, who has taken the form and role of a king. He is showering bliss on this world with his moon-like face, lit up by an inspiring smile and shedding rays of loving glances. Prithu is in all respects like Varuna. His mental outlook is limitless. His state secrets are confined within himself. He is one with great depth of thought. His wealth is well guarded. His greatness is endless. He is the ground of all virtues, and he is disciplined in every way. This fire of Prithu churned out of the Arani, which is the piece of wood from which sacrificial fire is produced, of Vena is as inaccessible and formidable to enemies at close quarters as at a distance. None can overcome him, though he keeps in close touch with the thoughts and actions of everyone through his spies. He remains an unmoved spectator, just like the all-pervading witness self within. As the enforcer of law, he would never inflict punishment on an innocent man, even if the man be his enemy's son. On the other hand, he will never hesitate to inflict punishment on an offender, even if it be his own son. This King Prithu's writ shall run unimpeded wherever the sun sheds his light and heat, even unto the Manasa mountain. Because he will delight the world with his actions, his subjects will call him Raja, or one who delights. He will follow austere disciplines in his life. He will be truthful, devoted to holy men, serviceable to elders, a refuge to all beings, respectful to all, and benevolent to the afflicted. To others' wives he will show the respect due to one's mother. To his wife he will be as loving and devoted as to his body's other half. To his subjects he will be as affectionate as a father. And to enlightened men he will be like a servant. To all embodied beings he will be as dear as their own self. In regard to friends, he will foster in them greater and greater joy. He will be attached to the non-attached, and towards the wicked he will be like Yama. He in whom the wise perceive this manifold world as a meaningless manifestation conjured up by ignorance, that supreme being, the unchangeable, the all-powerful, the immanent self in all, has partially incarnated himself in Prithu. Unrivaled hero that he is, he will rule over the whole earth, from the mountain of dawn to the east, in the east. Seated with bow in hand, in his victorious car, he will go round the world like the sun. On his way, here and there, local rulers and their overlords will gather to greet him and offer him tributes. Their women folk will look upon this first king as Mahavishnu himself, and sing about his glory accordingly, recognizing it to be his duty to provide a livelihood for his people. This ruler of men will milk the earth in the form of a cow to get all its hidden resources, and just as Indra did of old, he will, as if in play, split mountains with the end of his bow and level the earth. He will go about twanging his bow made of the horns of a goat and a bull, before the might of which there will be none to stand in the battlefield, and evildoers in all places will melt away into oblivion, just as animals will do in a forest when a lion appears with uplifted tail. Coming towards close to the end of this chapter for the next reader. He will perform 100 Aswamedha sacrifices. the goddess Saraswati will make her appearance at his sacrifice. During the 100th sacrifice, Indra will steal away the horse while the sacrifice is being performed. He will meet in his palace garden the sage Sanat Kumar, who is all-knowing and who travels alone, and worshipping him with devotion, get from him instruction for the realization of the supreme Brahman. This King Prithu, whose reputation and heroism are far famed, will hear his praise being sung by people wherever he goes. Of exceeding greatness, he will reign as the supreme ruler over the whole earth, having destroyed all the oppressive forces in the world by his prowess and established his unchallengeable sway over the whole land. His greatness will be sung about by devas and asuras alike.
Lovely. Hare Krishna. Continuing with chapter 17, Punishment of the Earth Goddess. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Maitreya said, being thus made widely known by the panegyric regarding his great qualities and future achievements, Prithu, in return, thanked the singers and gave as presents all they desired. He expressed his respect and goodwill for all in the country, the Brahmanas and other Varnas, ministers, officers, learned men, citizens, subjects from the Mofussil, don't know what that is, Mofussil, artisans, and his servants and subjects in general. Vidura said, why did the earth goddess assume the particular shape of a cow when she could have taken any form she liked? Who was the calf that helped in the milking? What was the vessel used for the purpose? The earth is naturally full of hills and dales. How did he level it? Why did Indra steal away his sacrificial horse? O learned one, having received theoretical instruction and practical realization of Brahman from the great illumined soul Sanat Kumara, what state did Prithu attain afterwards? Devoted as I am to you and the Lord, it behoves you to tell me all about the Lord's incarnation as Prithu and of his milking the earth, which had assumed the form of a cow. Suta said, requested thus by Vidura to elaborate on Vasudeva's doings, Maitreya approved of his questions and began to speak, overjoyed. Maitreya said, soon after Prithu was installed by the Brahmanas with the declaration that he was the protector of all in the country, a large number of people who were reduced to skeletons by starvation approached the king and said, O king, just like a tree with fire in its crevices, Kotara, we are being burnt by hunger, the fire in the stomach. As you have been appointed as king to provide us with livelihood, we come to you, the refuge of all, for relief. O king, may you be pleased to take steps to provide us with food before we perish from hunger. Is it not your duty as the protector of the land to provide us with sustenance? Maitreya said. Prithu thought for a long time over this pitiable submission of the people, and at last the cause of it dawned on his mind. Finding that the earth was the cause of the trouble, he took his bow and aimed his arrow at her in great anger, like Maheshwara, the destroyer of the Tripuras. Finding him about to strike, the goddess Earth trembled with fear, and taking the form of a cow, ran away, like a deer pursued by a hunter. Wherever she ran, she was followed by Prithu, with eyes red with anger and holding the arrow ready to strike. She ran in all the directions. She ran to heaven, the middle region, and the terrestrial region, but everywhere she found Prithu chasing her, weapon in hand. When the earth goddess, flying terror-stricken from Prithu, found shelter nowhere as men before death, she turned back, broken-hearted. She said to Prithu, O righteous one, you always show pity on those who take refuge in you. You have taken the form of a king to protect all, so it behoves you to give refuge to me also. Why do you want to kill me, an insignificant person who has done no wrong? Besides, I am a woman. How can you, learned in the codes of Dharma, kill me, a woman? Even uncultured people do not strike women, even if they be guilty. How can a kind and merciful personage like you do so? I am the firm boat on which the whole world is conveyed. If I am destroyed, then there will only be water to support you and all creatures. Prithu said, O earth, I shall certainly destroy you if you do not submit to my command. You receive your portion in the yagyas we perform, but you do not yield us cereals in return. Every day you are eating grass, but you do not yield milk. When you have grown thus perverse, it is only proper that you should be punished for it. The seeds of all edible grains created by Brahma for the food of man are retained by you in your bowels out of stupidity instead of releasing them. With the fat drawn out of your body by my arrows, I am going to assuage the sorrow of these people suffering from extreme hunger. Whether one is a man, a woman, or neuter, if one becomes too self-regarding, perverse, and merciless to living creatures, a king may kill such a person, and under the circumstances, it is not considered slaughter. Arrogant and haughty as you are, I shall cut into bits your falsely assumed body of a cow, and shall afterwards sustain these subjects by my yogic power. Seeing him as anger embodied and looking like another Yama, the earth goddess trembled in fear and said with palms held in salutation, the earth goddess said, salutations to the supreme being who has manifested himself as this multitudinous universe by his power of Maya, and who is the spirit behind material evolution. Salutation to him who is unaffected in his essential nature, in spite of his manifestation into object, action, and actor in this world of multiplicity. He, the creator who formed me before all other creatures as their residents, me in whom all creatures born of Prakriti and subject to karma dwell, if that all-powerful and self-sufficient being himself is coming to destroy me, to whom can I flee to seek protection? He who in the beginning created all the world by his creative power, Maya, which has its support in him and which is impossible to understand through argumentation, even he has now come to protect the world, his creation as the Lord incarnate. How can such a one who is devoted to righteousness think of destroying me? He who is the one in his essential nature and the many in manifestation, who is none the less the Lord and Master of everything, who created Brahma and gave him the power to continue creation. His will and motives cannot be understood by anyone whose mind is uncontrolled because of the influence of the Lord's Maya. Salutations to that Purushottama, to whom the creative process is but a sport accomplished through the absolute control he exercises over the manifestations of his cosmic power, such as the elements, the organs, the deities, intellect, egoism, and the like. O Lord, O Eternal One, I, the earth, was created by thee to be the residence of beings with bodies formed of elements, sense organs, mind, etc. And in order to protect these beings, thou, having assumed the form of the cosmic boar, didst lift me up from Rasatala. That same being who once appeared as the uplifter of the earth is now here as the heroic Prithu to protect the men inhabiting the same earth, which is a veritable boat that sustains itself and its occupants on the waters of the ocean. And strangely enough, he now wants to destroy me, who am floating on the waters of the ocean. Owing to the delusion caused by working of the Lord's Maya, which sets the three gunas of Prakriti in motion, persons like me are not able to know the minds of divine personages. Much less can we, in the case of incarnations like you. Salutations to the divine personages whose association helps heroes to augment their fame. And now I believe Gunnar is going to continue with chapter 18. Hare Krishna.
Jai Shri Krishna, Hari Om.
Chapter 18, the milking of the earth goddess as a cow, the self-justification of the earth goddess. Maitreya said, after thus praising Prithu, whose lips were still quivering in anger, the trembling earth goddess somehow controlled her mind and began to speak further. O Lord, deign to control your anger. Please listen to what I have to say. An enlightened man, rather like a bee, collects the essence of things everywhere. In this world and in those beyond, whatever has been known and done by great men for the welfare of mankind in the past will easily yield its fruit to men of later times too, if they are moved by great faith in it and are guided by proper codes of procedure. On the other hand, in the case of one who disregards the experience of the past and begins to do things as he likes, failure will attend all his efforts. O King, I saw how bad men, devoid of self-restraint, ate up all the cereals that Brahma had created for the purpose of yajna. When the whole world became full of thieves because of the neglect and misrule of its rulers, I took into myself all these cereals in order to conserve them for the yajna. Because of the long lapse of time, these are lying in me in a decayed condition. Adopting any means approved by great men, you can recover them. Find a suitable calf and a pot for milking, and then milk, in the form of all your wants, can be drawn from me. O great hero, if you wish to milk tasteful and strength-giving food for the people, you should also appoint a competent milker. O King, also level me in such a way that the waters that the rainy season brings may spread everywhere and be available even after the season is over. Hearing the reasonable and pleasing words of the earth goddess, Prithu made Swayambhuv Manu the calf and milked out all cereals into his own palm. Following Prithu's example, all others milked out whatever they wanted from the earth, who had been brought under control by Prithu. The rishis used Brihaspati as calf and milked the Vedas and such other scriptures into the vessel constituted of the senses. The Devas made Indra the calf, and into a golden vessel they milked the nectar, the milk that gives strength of mind, senses, and body. The Asuras, who are the sons of Diti and Danu, making Prahlad the calf, milked spirituous liquor and wine into iron vessels. The Gandharvas and the Apsaras made Vishvavasu the calf and milked music, sweetness of words, and beauty into a pot fashioned from a lotus. The Pitris, the deities controlling the Shraddhas, used Aryama as the calf and reverentially milked Kavya into an unbaked pot. Making the sage Kapila the calf and using the sky as the pot, the Siddhas milked the eightfold psychic powers, and the Vidyadharas milked the art of travelling in the air. Kimpurushas and kindred beings with magical powers made Maya the calf and milked the psychic power of disappearing from sight at will. yakshas, rakshasas, and flesh-eating pisachas, using Rudra as the calf, milked intoxicating blood into a skull. Snakes, scorpions, serpents, and nagas, using Takshaka as the calf, milked poison into their own mouths. Cows, making the bull of Sri Rudra the calf, milked the milk of grass into the pan of the forest. Flesh-eating animals with powerful fangs, using the lion as the calf, milked meat into the body as a pot. Trees, making the banyan the calf, milked tastes like sour, pungent, and the like, while the hills, making the Himalaya the calf, milked various precious minerals into their valleys. In this way, making the leading one of the species the calf, they milked into their particular vessels their requirements from the wish-yielding earth, who had been brought under control by Prithu. O Vidura, in this way, Prithu and the others, who were in need of substances like cereals, milked from the earth their requirements with the help of their respective vessels and calves. Then King Prithu, being exceedingly pleased with the earth for providing all with their requirements, adopted her as his daughter. This great and powerful King Prithu shattered to pieces the peaks of mountains with the ends of his bow and made the earth more or less level. Next, Prithu, who was loved by his subjects like their own father for having provided them with livelihood, began to build, according to need, in the proper places, villages, towns, cities, various kinds of fortresses, barracks for troops, tunnels, agricultural colonies, and hill settlements. Before the time of Prithu, there was no hard and fast distinction between villages and towns. Now all the people, rural and urban, stayed happily in their respective places without fear. Veena-ji?
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Continuing in Skanda 4, chapter 19, the story of Prithu's horse sacrifice. Maitreya said, Prithu now resolved to perform 100 horse sacrifices in Brahmavarta, the seat of Swayambhuva Manu on the banks of the east-flowing Saraswati. Indra, the king of gods, could not tolerate Prithu's yagyas, as he found that they would excel his own performance. Present in that yagya was Mahavishnu, the lord of all yajnas, the soul of all, the teacher of the worlds, the omnipotent being, and the controller of all. Together with the Lord were Brahma, Parameshwara, their attendants and the guardian deities of the quarters, as well as the Gandharvas, Munis, Apsaras, and others. The Lord was accompanied by several other kinds of beings anxious to serve him, like the Siddhas, Vidyadharas, Daityas, Dhanavas, the Gulyakas, the Sunandas, and great devotees of his like Kapila, Narada, Dattatreya, Sanaka, and his saintly group, and a large number of Bhagavatas devoted to him. The wish-yielding earth goddess appeared as a cow and gave all the havis and other ingredients required for the ceremony to the master of the sacrifices. The rivers began to flow with milk, curds, food, etc., while the big trees became burdened with honey-dripping fruits. The ocean gave great quantities of precious gems, and the mountains 4 kinds of food. All the worlds with their protectors brought presents for the occasion. Seeing the sacrificial ceremony of Prithu, a great devotee of the Lord, Indra became extremely jealous and created obstructions for the sacrifice. When Prithu was performing his last sacrifice, the jealous Indra hid himself in the vicinity and stole away all the sacrificial horse. The Maharishi Atri saw Indra running fast in the sky in the form of a barbarian, one accustomed to find dharma in our dharma. Prithu's son, who was a great car warrior, followed him as directed by Atri and, in great anger, ordered him to halt. When he saw the barbarian with his matted hair and ash-smeared body, he thought he was dharma embodied and did not shoot his arrow at him. To him who thus hesitated to shoot, Atri cried out again and again, "Oh, kill him! The dastardly Indra, the breaker of the sacrifice!" At this prompting, the enraged son of Prithu rushed at the fleeting Indra, like Jatayu after Ravana. Thereupon, Indra abandoned the horse and his assumed form, and disappeared from sight, and the heroic son of Prithu brought the horse back to his father's sacrifice ground. O Vidura, in recognition of this heroic action of his, the rishis gave him the name Vijitsava, or one who victoriously got back the horse. The clever Indra now created a dense darkness and under the cover of it stole away the horse, lifting up the gilded rope with which the horse was tied to the sacrificial post. Atri again pointed out Indra, who was flying fast in the sky. The son of Prithu did nothing at first against Indra, who was equipped with a skull and a weapon called Katvanga. Then, prompted by Atri, he aimed an arrow at Indra in great anger. Thereupon Indra disappeared, leaving the horse and that barbaric form as well. Prithu's son then returned to his father's sacrificial ground with the horse, while men of low intelligence adopted that barbarous-looking form of Indra, assuming it to be a model of perfection. Whatever forms Indra assumed for the obstruction of the yajna, they are, as if it were, expressions of sin. The forms being parts of sin are known as khandha. The forms which Indra abandoned in his effort to steal the horse and obstruct the yajna of Prithu are the pseudo-religions of the Jainas, Buddhists, and the Kapilikas, with their extremely attractive but fallacious arguments, which people misguided by atheistic tendencies consider to be dharma. On coming to know about the depredation of Indra, the valiant Prithu was full of anger, and fixing his arrow on the bow, was on the verge of attacking Indra. When the sacrificial priests saw Prithu in his unbearably lustrous and terrific mood, they restrained him from his attack on Indra, saying, "O great one, here in this sacrificial field, no killing except that of the sacrificial animal is permitted. This Indra, obstructor of yajna, is already deprived of his prowess by your glorious reputation. We shall invoke Indra's presence here by powerful mantras, and then by force make an oblation of him in the fire." O Vidura, instructing the master of the sacrifice thus, the priests with shruk in hand were about to make the oblation when Brahma appeared and forbade them, saying, "This Indra, whom you want to destroy, though the sacrificial offering is the one of whom all the devas are manifestations. Besides, this present Indra, named Jagna, the son of Akuti by Ruchi, is an incarnation of Mahavishnu. He does not deserve to be destroyed. O Brahmanas, look at the many systems of atheism that have been created by this Indra in the process of his obstruction of this yajna of the king. So it is better to be reconciled with Indra, as atheism will be further strengthened if he is antagonized. Let Prithu, who is already very famous, be satisfied with 99 jagyas. And as for you, O Prithu, there is nothing more to be achieved through the performance of yagyas, for you are the one endowed with an understanding of moksha, dharma, the ways of liberation. It is not proper for you to be on inimical terms with Indra, who, like you, is an expression of Mahavishnu. O Emperor, do not grieve over the obstruction of this jagya. Listen to my words. If man persists in doing anything that the divine will have obstructed, his mind will only become extremely agitated, and it will sink into darkness. He will never have any peace. Let your yagya stop now. Indra is promoted by his own narrow interests, and is therefore very difficult to dissuade. Already, the true Dharma has been very much affected by the schools of atheism that Indra has created. See how the world is already drawn towards these attractive theories of atheism, originated by this Indra, who stole your horse and wanted to obstruct the sacrifice. You were born into this world to restore the Dharma propounded by the Shastras, which has been lost on account of the perverted acts of Vena. You, who were churned out of the arm of Vena, are an incarnation of an aspect of Vishnu. Therefore, O king, think over the present situation and about the people's welfare. It behooves you to fulfill the expectations of the Prajapatis. You have to overcome this magical power of Indra, by which he has made people think of these cruel, atheistic paths as the real Dharma. Maitreya said, advised in this way by Brahma, Prithu gave up his resolve to perform the yagya and made peace with Indra. The great deities who were invoked and propitiated at the yagya bestowed liberal boons on the Prithu, who completed the sacrificial ceremonies with Avabrita Snana, or the terminal holy bath after the sacrificial ceremony. O Vidura, the great Brahmanas, whose good wishes never go in vain, were very much pleased with the parting gifts given with great respect, and pronounced their blessings on Prithu. They said, O heroic one, all the devas, pitris, and men you have invited and gathered here have been properly honored and rewarded by you. Tatashtu.
Atha, now, chapter 20. Interestingly, it begins Bhagavan Api. So that's so often used in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhagavan Api. It's even Bhagavan. So Maitreya said, even Bhagavan, who is the controller of all yagyas and the deity adored in all yagyas, was very much pleased with Prithu's sacrifice, and in company with Indra spoke to him thus. Bhagavan said, this Indra obstructed your 100th yagya. He is penitent about it, and you should excuse him for it. O king, wise men who understand that the Atman is not the body will never injure others, as they are devoid of the false identification with the body. If even great personages like you are infatuated by the Lord Maya, then spiritual practices like the long service of holy men are reduced to a mere purposeless exertion. After having understood that this body is the product of karma generated by desires, the offspring of avidya, a man, a wise man, awakened from ignorance, will not be attached to it. Which wise man who has outgrown the attachment to the body will entertain the idea of mine with regard to house, son, wealth, etc., which have their source in the body. The Atman is different from the body, for the Atman is one, pure, self-conscious, non-material, the ground of matter and its modifications, the all-pervading, without any covering, the witness and the selfless self. He who understands this Atman to be the essence in himself does not become attached to the modification called matter, though he may dwell in the physical body, for he is established in me. Whoever adores me through the performance of swadharma daily, without any extraneous motive, attains little by little to purity of mind. One who has achieved purification of mind overcomes the material nature and gains spiritual insight, by virtue of which he realizes that peace of Brahman consciousness which consists in oneness with my being. Whoever realizes the changeless and unattached spirit within as the witness of the body, organs of knowledge and organs of action, he attains to the highest good. It is the linga sharira, subtle body, constituted of subtle matter, senses, mind, and a reflection of the spirit that is subject to transmigration. Hence, those who are attached to me and not to the body remain unperturbed in prosperity and adversity. Therefore, O hero, carry on the work of governing the land, maintaining an equality of outlook towards all, superior persons, middling persons, and common people, remaining unperturbed in happiness and suffering, and amidst all the paraphernalia of state bestowed by me. The king derives his highest good by protecting his people. A king who protects his people well will deserve 1/6 of the merits of his subjects in the life hereafter. But a king who collects taxes from people without administering their affairs properly will lose all the merits to his credit and will inherit the sins of his people to boot. You will for some time rule this earth, following the ancestral code of Dharma approved by the sages, and completely unattached while doing so. Soon you will become dear to all. Then you will meet in your palace the great devotees, Shanaka and his brothers. O king, seek some boon from me. I have been won over by your virtues and your noble behavior. Neither sacrifices nor austerity can make me easily available. I reside in those who have control of their mind and the resulting state of equanimity. Being thus commanded by the Lord, King Prithu gladly agreed to do so. He lovingly embraced Indra, who was now prostrating at his feet, repentant of his mean conduct and freed from the spirit of confrontation. The Supreme Lord, the soul of the world and the friend of the good, was now worshipped by Prithu who prostrated himself and clung to his feet in utter devotion. Then the Lord was about to depart, but seeing Prithu, he delayed, looking at him with compassion for a long while. Prithu, the first of kings, could not even see the Lord because of the tears of devotion welling up in his eyes as he faced Hari with his hands held in a devout salutation. Nor could he speak, owing to the feelings surging within him and expressing themselves as tears. Speechless, he thus stood, embracing Sri Hari with his heart. Wiping away the tears from his eyes, he saw Hari standing before him like a human being with his feet contacting the earth and resting one of his arms on the high shoulder of his eagle vehicle Garuda. Unsatiated by merely seeing him, Prithu now expressed his feelings in the following hymn. He says, Varan Vibho Tadvaradeshwarad Buddha Katam Briniti Guna Vikriyatmanam Ye Narakanam Api Shanti Dehinam Tanisha Kaivalyapati Vrinenacha. O all-pervading one, how can a man of intelligence seek boons from thee, who art the master of even the boon-giving divinities? Indeed, a body-minded man alone could do so, for such enjoyments are born of boons, being purely physical, can be had even in the animal bodies or in hell, for that matter. For me, they have no attraction. O thou who art capable of granting liberation to jivas. This one's famous. Nakamaye nata tadapyaham kvachit Chinna yatra yushmacharanam bujasavaha mahattamantar hridayam mukhachuto vidatsva karnayutameshamevara. But I care not for liberation, if it is a state devoid of faculties to imbibe the nectarine drink, that is the narration of thy glories and excellencies, a nectar from the hearts of thy supernal devotees flowing through their lips. So if a boon of my choice is to be bestowed, grant unto me 10,000 ears, with which I may support my soul in the boundless joy that listening to the words of thy great men on thy excellencies alone can impart. O glorious one, even a little of the breeze laden with particles of the ambrosia of thy excellencies, coming as the spoken words of saintly ones, can purify fallen yogis and restore them to the knowledge of the Atman from which they have deviated. Such being the case, what other boon shall I seek than eternal absorption in the contemplation of thy endless glories and excellencies? O thou far famed for thy virtues, he indeed is a beast who, having even by chance fallen into the company of holy men, feels satiated with and withdraws from the recital of thy holy excellencies heard in such company. None endowed with a sense of soul elevating virtues would ever do so, for see how even Shri, thy consort, in a quest for one embodying himself in all that is glorious and virtuous, found in thee alone such a person, one whom she could choose without hesitation. Therefore, I too, like Padma, Shri, thy consort, shall most enthusiastically serve thee, the supreme and receptacle of all excellencies. But would this not result in a rivalry between us two, as between two consorts seeking thy feet as our common refuge and thyself as our common lord and master? O Lord of all, rivalry between me and the mother of the universe will certainly arise, for I have developed an interest in what has been her exclusive privilege, namely the work of serving thee. In the event of such rivalry, for I have no fear of any partiality in thee, for Sri. For, O friend of the lowly, thou dost accept even the humblest of services from a true devotee without consideration of high and low. And pray, what attraction does Sri hold for thee, who art ever engrossed in thy inherent bliss? Holy men worship thee, in whom there is no trace of delusion, born of the effects of Maya. We believe that a holy man finds no meaning for his own existence except in the opportunity it gives for the service of thee. Thy words, offering boons to me, who am engaged in thy worship, is typical of the sort of allurement thou hast placed before the whole world. For it is thy words in the scriptures, promising rewards for various forms of worship and ritual, that are prompting them again and again to perform works for the sake of such rewards. O Lord, the whole world is stricken by thy Maya, else why should all stupidly run after petty enjoyments, rejecting thee, the essence of truth? Just as a father protects a son unasked, it is meet that thou dost protect us, as thou alone knowest what is good for us. Maitreya said, being thus hymned by Prithu, the first of kings, the Lord said, may you have devotion to me. It is indeed fortunate that you acquired that type of discriminating intelligence with which you have been able to accomplish the very difficult work of overcoming my Maya. O King, do with all attention what I have commanded. Good befalls all who obey my commandments. Maitreya said, after thus accepting the weighty words of Prithu with approval and his worshipful adoration, the Lord pronounced a blessing on him and was ready to depart. Then all who had come in response to Prithu's invitation, Devas, Rishis, Pitris, Gandharvas, Siddhas, Charanas, serpents, Kinnaras, Apsaras, men, birds, and various other kinds of beings, also departed after being adored respectfully by the king with gifts, words, and salutations. Get ready. As veritable manifestations of the divine. The Lord now disappeared from the sight of Prithu and the priests, carrying away the king's heart, as it were, in the process. The king then made prostrations to the one unmanifest to the mind and eyes of man, but who had nonetheless manifested himself to him in one of his forms and had now disappeared from his view. He then departed for his city. Who is next? That's the end of chapter 20. Now next is there you are.
King Prithu's teachings to his subjects. Hurry on. Yeah, anyway, yeah. Discourse 21. Maitreya continued. The city was decorated everywhere with strings of pearls, wreaths of flowers, drapery, ornamental arches of gold, and highly fragrant incense burning in censers. It had its streets, quadrangles, and highways sprinkled with water, perfumed with sandal and aloe, and was adorned with flowers, unbroken rice, fruits, young blades of barley, parched grains of rice, and lights. It was beautified with stems of bananas containing bunches of flowers and fruits. as well as with young areches uprooted and planted here and there by way of decoration, and was embellished all round with festoons prepared with leaves of various trees, mango, etc. People of the city, and particularly fair-looking maids adorned with polished earrings, advanced to greet him with lights and presents, as well as with all kinds of auspicious substances, such as curds, etc., collected for the occasion. Extolled by bards and minstrels, yet free from pride, the hero entered the palace in the midst of a flourish of conches and the crash of kettle drums and the chant of Vedic hymns by the priests. Greeted everywhere on the route and highly pleased, King Prithu of great renown honoured the citizens as well as the different classes of his subjects, hailing from the countryside by granting them boons which delighted them. Doing many such deeds as the melting of the earth, the great monarch of unimpeachable conduct and the most adored of all ruled over the terrestrial globe, and after establishing an extensive renown, eventually ascended to the highest abode of the Lord. Suta went on. Vidura, that eminent votary of the Lord, O Shonaka, hailed the sage Maitreya, the son of Kosharu, as the latter dwelt upon the glory of King Prithu, the first constitutional monarch of this globe, which had been augmented by excellences of every kind and had won the homage of men of great virtues, and spoke as follows. Vidura said, "What did that Prithu further do, who was installed as king by the Brahmanas, received presents from all the gods, and bore the prowess of Lord Vishnu's arms, by which he milked the earth in the form of a cow? What knowing man could not hear the glory of King Prithu? For it is the remains of whatever was achieved by his valor that all the so-called rulers of the earth, as well as the different worlds and their guardian deities, enjoy to their heart's content, even to this day. Therefore, pray, tell me more of his faultless doings." Maitreya resumes. Living in the holy stretch of land lying between the two rivers, the Ganga and Yamuna, he enjoyed only such pleasures as had been earned by his past deeds, and that too with a view to exhausting his merits, and not for the gratification of his senses. His commands were respected everywhere, and he held undisputed sway over all the 7 main divisions of the terrestrial globe, barring, of course, the Brahmanas and the votaries of the immortal Lord, who recognized the Lord alone as their progenitor. Once he consecrated himself for a great sacrificial session. Once he consecrated himself for a great sacrificial session, and there was a huge gathering on that occasion of heavenly beings, Brahmana seers, and royal sages, O noblest Vidura. When all the venerable persons in that assembly had been duly honored according to their rank and position, the king rose in their midst like the moon in the midst of the stars. He was tall of stature, with brawny and long arms, and had a fair complexion, eyes ruddy as a lotus, and a shapely nose and a lovely countenance. He was gentle in appearance and had rounded shoulders, beautiful rows of teeth, and a winsome smile. Full of rigor, he had a broad chest, bulky hips, and a belly shaped like the leaf of the holy fig tree, and charming with folds. His navel was deep and circular like an eddy. His thighs resembled a pair of gold pillars, and his feet were slightly elevated in front. The hair on his head was fine, curly, dark, and sleek, and his throat was marked by 3 spiral lines like those of a conch shell. He had on his person a pair of costly and excellent pieces of linen, one wrapped about his loins and the other slung across his right side and left shoulder. Being under a vow of abstinence, he had laid aside his jewels so that the natural beauty of all his limbs was now manifest. Covering himself with the skin of a black buck and wearing a ring of kusha grass in his hands, he looked exceptionally graceful and had just finished his religious duties appropriate to the hour. The king looked all around with eyes which were full of love and soothed one's agony, and thrilling the whole assembly with delight, as it were, made the following speech, which was charming to the ear, full of elegant figurative expression, bland polish, deep in significance, and uninterrupted by emotion. As he spoke, it seemed as if he was recounting at that time his own experience for the benefits of all. The king said, "Worthies present here, may you all be blessed. Pious souls gathered here, pray, listen. Those who are eager to know what Dharma righteousness is ought to submit their own conception about it before the wise. As a ruler on this earth, I have been assigned the role of punishing the evildoers, protecting the people against calamities, affording them means of subsistence, and keeping them severally within their bounds, the spheres allotted to them by the Shastras. By discharging these functions, I, as such, hope to attain those realms which yield what one desires, and which, as the expounders of the Vedas declare, are earned by him who wins the pleasure of God. A sovereign who levies taxes but fails to teach the people their sacred duties merely reaps their sin and forfeits his fortune. Free from a carping spirit and with your mind fixed on Lord Vishnu, who is above sense perception, therefore, my beloved subjects, do your own duty for the good in the other world of your ruler, myself, for therein lies your own interest, and thereby you will have done a great favour to me. Kindly lend me your hearty support in this prayer of mine, O pure-hearted manes, gods and sages, for the fruit which accrues thereafter to the doer, the instructor and the countenancer is just the same. Sorry. In the opinion of some believing souls, O most worthy ones, there is a God who dispenses the fruit of all actions, for both here and hereafter can be seen, in some rare cases, places of enjoyment as well as bodies which are endowed with uncommon brilliance. In the opinion of Swayambhuva Manu, the first ruler of the earth, Uttanapada, his younger son, King Dhruva, Uttanapada's illustrious son, the royal sage Priyavrata, Swayambhuva's elder son, my grandfather Anga, nay of Brahma, the birthless creator, and Lord Shiva, the progenitor of the universe, as well as of the demon kings, Parad and Bali, and others, like those enumerated above, one has to do with it is necessary to postulate the existence of Bhagavan Narayan, the sole independent means of securing the three objects of human pursuit, Dharma, Artha, Kama, as ways as heavenly bliss and final beatitude, the only dissenters being my father, Vena, the grandson of death, and a few others who were deluded in the matter of righteousness and therefore deserve to be pitied. God, that was a big, long sentence. Like the sacred stream, the Ganga, that has flowed from his great toe, the pious and ever-increasing relish one finds, like the sacred stream, the Ganga that has flowed from his great toe, the pious and ever-increasing relish one finds in adoring his feet, immediately wipes out the impurity of mind of those affected by the trials and tribulations of mundane existence, accumulated in the course of all previous births. Even the man who has taken shelter in the soles of his feet is completely rid of all the impurities of mind, and acquiring the special power of dispassion, special power of dispassion and self-realization, never returns to worldly life, which brings misery in its train. Confident of achieving the goal according to your individual merits and free from hypocrisy, therefore, worship him alone, whose lotus feet are capable of yielding whatever you desire with the functions of your mind, speech, and body, and by your own duties, which serve as a means of procuring a living to you. A compact mass of pure consciousness and attributeless in essence. He, the Supreme Person, manifests himself in the path of the ritual in the form of a sacrifice possessed of many attributes, which is accomplished with the help of diverse substances such as barley, rice, sesame seeds, and ghee. Quantities of things, such as the pounding of paddy and the fanning the chaff from the grain, as well as through the purposes to which the various rites are directed, the intention with which the sacrifice is undertaken, the distinctive virtue of things, and the appellations such as Jyotishtoma and Vajapayi, by which the sacrifice is known. Vajapayi, sorry. Even as fire manifested through various pieces of wood appears endowed with their peculiarities, size, shape, etc., so does the all-pervading Lord, who is supreme bliss, manifesting himself through the medium of the intellect, which has identified itself with the three external objects, in the body of an individual, which is a product of prakriti, primordial matter. The time, spirit, latent desires, and destiny appear as the fruit of various religious rites as well. O those of my subjects on the surface of this globe who with a firm resolve incessantly worship through the performance of their allotted duty, Sri Hari, the preceptor of the universe and the Supreme Lord of all those who receive a share in the sacrificial offerings, really do me a favor. May the luster emanating from the ruling Kshatriya race through their great affluence and power never overpower the Brahmana race and the votaries of the invincible Lord Vishnu, shining brightly through sheer forbearance, austerity, and adoration. It is by ever... It is by ever adoring the feet of the Brahmanas that Sri Hari, the most ancient person, who is a great devotee of the Brahmana community and who takes the lead among the most exalted, one Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, who never leaves him, and a glory which sanctifies the universe. Following as you do the righteous conduct of the Lord, pray, adore in all humility and with your entire being the Brahmana race, by serving whom that independent Lord who dwells in the heart of all and is extremely fond of the Brahmanas is supremely pleased. Who is better qualified in this world to serve as a mouth or vehicle to convey offerings to the gods who feed on sacrificial food than the Brahmana race, by constantly adoring whom a man automatically attains final beatitude in the shape of everlasting peace before long consequent on his mind getting purified as a matter of course. The immortal Lord, who is the sole theme of the Upanishads, the utterances referring to those who are devoted to self-realization, surely does not enjoy the oblations poured onto the sacrificial fire, which is bereft of consciousness, so well as those offered with reference into the mouth of a Brahmana by the knowers of truth in the name of gods fit to be adored in a sacrifice. Equipped with reverence or austerity, commendable conduct, chariness of speech, self-control and concentration of mind, the Brahmanas ever attain in their memory with a view to discovering truth, the pure and eternal Veda, and which the whole of this universe can be clearly seen as in a mirror. O venerable ones, let me carry the dust of their lotus feet on my crown, all of my life. For the sins of the man who constantly wears it on his head speedily disappears, and all sorts of virtues seek their abode in him. And riches of every kind, as a matter of course, woo him who is an abode of excellences, rich in moral character, full of gratitude and devoted to the elders. Therefore, may the Brahmana race and the bovine species, as well as Lord Janardana and his servants, be gracious to me. Maitreya went on. As the king spoke thus, the manis and gods, as well as the Brahmanas who had assembled there, and who were all pious souls, felt delighted and applauded him, uttering words of approbation. They said, the Vedic text that one attains to the higher worlds through a worthy son is quite true. For the sinful Vena, Prithu's father, who was killed by the curse of the Brahmana, has been able to cross over the tortures of hell through you. Even so, Hiranyakashipu was about to descend into hell as a consequence of his blaspheming the Lord, but escaped it through the piety of his virtuous son, Prahlad. O great hero, father of earth, may you live happily for numberless years, you who have such devotion to the immortal Lord, the one undisputed ruler of all the worlds. Having you for our ruler, O king, get ready, can I? Having you for our ruler, O king of sacred renown, we look upon ourselves as under the protection of Lord Mukunda, the bestower of liberation. Today, since you revealed to us the stories of Lord Vishnu, the foremost of those enjoying excellent fame and a votary of the Brahmana race. It is no great wonder on your part, O Lord, to instruct your dependents, for it is the nature of exalted souls possessed of a tender heart to love their subjects. Robbed of our judgment by our own actions, going by the name of destiny, we have been wandering in the wilderness of transmigration. Today, you have led us across the darkness of ignorance, O Lord. Hail to you, the most adorable person, dominated by the quality of sattva, unmixed with rajas and tamas, who, inspiring the Brahmana race, protects the Kshatriya community and vice versa, and, inspiring both, maintain the whole universe by dint of your own energy. Hari Om.
I lost the page, by the way.
It's Discourse 22 now.
Oh,
The sage Sanaka and the three brothers in
Page
part introduction.
400. 400
yeah.
in the book.
Is that the same translation?
No.
I'm a different book.
Oh, that's why. Okay. All right. Thanks. Okay. All right, on. So, Skanda 4, chapter 22, the Sermon of the Kumaras. Maitreya said, while his subjects were thus lauding Prithu of unrivaled prowess, there arrived at the place the group of 4 great sages, the Kumaras, headed by Sanaka, who seemed as brilliant as the sun. These sages, noted for their spiritual radiance with which they purified the whole world, were seen to come down from the skies. On seeing them, Prithu and the assembled persons sprang up from their seats at once, as if to bring back their prana that had gone out, and received the sages as the jiva, the master of the senses, receives sense objects. With his native gravity restraining his exuberance and with his head bowing in humility, he worshipped the yogins after they were first presented with agya and seats of honor. As if to respect the rules of good conduct, he sprinkled all over his hair the water with which he washed their feet. Elder even to Sri Rudra, these sages shone like fire rising from the sacrificial altar as they sat on gilded thrones. To them Prithu said as follows, with great reverence, and in well-chosen words. Prithu said, O holy ones, receptacles of all that is auspicious, I wonder what meritorious deeds I have done for this great blessing. Today I am favored with a meeting with you, which even great yogins cannot easily have. What is unattainable by one with whom the holy men as well as Shiva and Vishnu with their followers? What is unattainable by one with whom the holy men as well as Shiva and Vishnu with their followers are pleased? You travel all over the world, but living beings do not see you. 'Tis just like the presence of the Atman in the midst of all the material categories as their seer, without himself being seen by them. A householder may be poor, but he must be considered rich in merit if his home and humble articles of reception become pleasing and acceptable to holy men. Even a prosperous home is like a tree inhabited by serpents if the washings of the feet of great devotees have never flowed there. O great Brahmanas, welcome to you, utterly egoless, like children. You care only for the divine self and are given to stern, austere living. O honored ones, can there be any happiness for householders who, mistaking sense objects to be the supreme good of man, have fallen under the influence of past karma into the vortex of samsara, which is nothing but a veil of sorrows? In regard to personages like you, who are ever immersed in the bliss of the self, 'tis not proper to inquire about health, welfare, and such things, for in their minds there are no mental modifications of pleasures and pain, enjoyments and sufferings. Therefore, in full faith I ask you, austere sages and the friends of all who are in suffering, how man can work out his welfare quickly in this cycle of birth and death? The Supreme Being, who is specially manifest in spiritually illumined ones, and who is the immanent spirit in all, verily goes about as an enlightened teacher in order to bless all his devotees. You, verily, are such embodiments of the divine. Maitreya said, hearing these words of Prithu, relevant, meaningful, brief, and pleasing, Sanat Kumar, one of the four Kumaras, began to speak with a beaming face and a pleasing smile. Sanat Kumara said, O great king, your question is indeed fine. Though knowing everything, your question is meant for the good of all. For it is in the nature of good men to work for the good of others. Conversations about holy themes bring about the good of both the speakers and the listeners. The questions and answers at such meetings are for the good of all. O king, you have in you that rare attainment, the feeling of attraction and delight in hearing and describing the excellences of Sri Hari. This delight, if firmly and constantly established in a devotee, easily dispels lust, a mental impurity that is otherwise difficult to overcome. After deep philosophical reflection, the scriptures have determined that man can achieve his all-round welfare only through detachment from material concerns and an unfailing delight in Brahman, who transcends the gunas of Prakriti. That love of God is attained through firm faith, performance of Bhagavat Dharma, philosophic discrimination and reflection, the practice of concentration through the eight-limbed yoga, association with holy men, and listening to the recital of the Lord's works and excellences. One who wants to cultivate devotion should eschew the company of men whose only interest is in sensuous enjoyments, and also avoid the objects and places that are pleasing to such people. When there is no convenience to listen to the recitals of Sri Hari's excellences, one should engage in philosophical reflection or resort to some solitary place. By the practice of non-injury, by living as a Paramahamsa, by meditating on the Lord, by listening to the nectarine accounts of the Lord's doings, by the absence of desires, by self-control, by spiritual disciplines, by the avoidance of criticism of the faiths of others, by eschewing work done for one's selfish purposes, and by practicing equanimity in joyous and painful situations alike, this firm devotion to the Lord develops. The Lord's excellencies constitute the real ear ornament of devotees. For by listening to these, sentiment of devotion is augmented without any difficulty. It develops renunciation for everything gross and subtle in the sensuous life, and generates spontaneous delight in and attachment for the Supreme Being, who is pure spirit and who transcends the gunas of Prakriti. When a person, under the instruction of a genuine teacher, develops a firm and constant delight in and attachment to the Supreme Being, then he is endowed with the power of renunciation and spiritual enlightenment. This power burns up, as a fire does its fuel, the shell of one's self-centered individuality, which is composed of the 5 aspects of ignorance: avidya, ignorance; asmita, egoism; raga, dvesha, attachment and aversion; and abhinivesha, clinging to life. So, yes, and which is worn thin by spiritual disciplines. So, yes, the aspirant whose mind has been thus burnt up and is thereby freed from the limitations imposed on it, sees no longer an inside and an outside for the self. 'Tis the mind that acts as a barrier in the self, causing the distinction of the subject and the object. The state of one in whom this divisive factor has been obliterated is like that of one awakened from a dream. 'Tis only when there is the medium of the mind that one feels, through that medium, the distinction between the object, the subject, the instruments, and the like. It is only when there is a reflecting surface between, like water or a mirror, that the seer sees the distinction between himself and the reflected image. When the reflector is gone, the reflection too disappears, and only the seer remains. The mind of a man who is captivated by external objects loses its discriminative faculty, even as the water in a lake is dried up by the reeds on its margin. If thought is weakened or distorted, the sense of the continuity of events is lost. If that is lost, intelligence is forfeited. If intelligence is lost, man is as good as having attained to self-destruction. There is no greater loss than such self-destruction, for it is for the sake of the self that everything else is valued. By a continued preoccupation with wealth and sex, man misses the real human fulfillments, for an unending preoccupation with these things deprives him of spiritual knowledge and experience. He is gradually reduced to the state of trees and other vegetation. One who aspires to overcome the thick darkness of ignorance should never seek contacts that are contrary to the fourfold end of life: dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. Of these 4 ends, moksha alone is accepted as the really stable value to be sought, for the other 3 are subject to the destructive force of time. Whatever is born as the effect of the transformations of the 3 gunas of Prakriti are like castles in the air, struck down in time by the will of the Lord. They do not lead to the ultimate goal. O King, in the hearts of all beings, who, as it were, form a cluster of body, mind, senses, prana, buddhi, and ahankar, the Lord shines as the master, the real presence, the indweller. Know yourself to be a part and parcel of him. He in whom Maya, in the form of the universe of cause and effects, shines, even as a snake seems to appear in a wreath in the state of ignorance. and is sublated in the wake of knowledge. In him, who is ever free, ever pure, ever awake, and who transcends this work-burdened realm of matter, I seek refuge. Aesthetics, endowed with a renunciation and control of the senses, are not able to cut the knot of self-centeredness fortified by the tendencies acquired in the past, with the same ease as those devotees who love the Lord and are devoted to his service. Therefore, practice devotion to Vasudeva. Without thee as the boat, without thee, capital T, so that's Vasudeva, sorry. Without thee as the boat, it is very difficult for one to cross the ocean of samsara. For those who attempt to do so, the crocodiles of the six passions make it well nigh impossible. Therefore, taking Sri Hari's worshipful feet as your boat, cross this ocean of samsara, which is so full of sufferings and so difficult to cross. Maitreya said, being thus instructed by Sanat Kumara, the son of Brahma, and the knower of Brahman, and having realized Brahman through that instruction, the king spoke in praise of him. The king said, the merciful Lord Hari had given me his blessing long ago, O Great One. It is to complete this divine mercy that you have come to me. Your merciful selves have now actually brought fulfillment to that blessing. My body and my kingdom are only the remnants of what holy men have returned to me as a blessing after I had given all my belongings to them. So what can I offer to you? O Great One, I have already made an offering of all that I have, my life, spouse, child, estates, utensils, kingdom, army, farms, treasury, etc. The command of the army, the government, the administration of justice, and the lordship of the whole country, all these really belong to the holy ones who know the Vedas and the Shastras. What the holy man eats is his own food. What he wears is his own cloth. What he gives is his own wealth. He is the owner of everything. But the food that the Kshatriyas and others eat is only what the holy man gives them as a gift. So you, knowers of the Veda, who in the course of your spiritual discourse have so effectively expounded the supremacy of Bhagavan, will have to be satisfied with the thought that you have done this good deed prompted by mercy. For I have nothing with which to compensate you for your spiritual service beyond offering my salutation. To do anything more would be ridiculous, since my debt to you is beyond measure. Maitreya said, then the Kumaras, the great messengers of the spiritual the great messengers of the spiritual gospel, after being duly worshipped by Prithu, departed, praising the great qualities of Prithu. As they rose in the sky, all those present looked on. Prithu, the greatest among the great, considered himself to have achieved life's ultimate purpose since he had been established in the Atman consciousness through the concentration he developed with the aid of the spiritual instruction he received from the sages. He made an offering of all his works to the divine, performing them according to the propriety as dictated by time, place, capacity, suitability, and financial solvency, offering the fruits of all actions to the Lord, unattached, with the mind ingathered, considering himself as spirit transcending matter, assuming the attitude of a mere onlooker in all his actions. Prithu lived in his palace amidst the abundance that royalty brings in its train. But as there was no ego-centeredness in him, he remained unaffected by sense objects, even as the sun who shines over everything. In the course of his active life, which was based on total dedication to the Lord, he begot 5 sons worthy of himself by his wife Archis. These 5 sons are Vichitasa, Dhumrakshesh, Haryaksha, Dravina, and Rika, and Prithu himself and Prithu manifested himself the qualities of all the Lokapalas. Like Soma, the deity of the moon, Prithu, the divine king, under the guise of an earthly ruler, worked for the protection of the world, with his mind ever devoted to the Lord, and delighted his subjects with his thoughts, words, deeds, and with the gentleness of his personality. As the sun takes and gives out water, he collected wealth as tax, but gave it back to his subjects in proper time, and through his prowess he held all the subordinate kings in their proper places. He was formidable like fire, invincible like Indra, patient and equanimous. It's cut in half as well. Equanimous like the earth, and generous like the sky. Like the clouds, he rained on the world all that is desirable. Like the ocean, the depth of his grave personality was immeasurable, and like Mount Sumeru, he was the center of power in his kingdom. In administering justice, he was like Dharmaraj. In generating awe and wonder, he was like unto Himavad. In wealth, he was like Kubera. In the inexhaustibility of his treasure, he was like Varuna. In strength of body, mind, and senses, he was like the wide-ranging air. In the invincibility of his prowess, he was like Rudra. In beauty, he was like Kamadeva. In courage, he was like a lion. In tenderness of feeling, he was like Manu, and in lording over all, he was like Rama. In Vedic scholarship, he was like Brihaspati. In control of the senses, he was like Hari. In his devotion to holy men and devotees, in his humility and polite behavior towards all, in his abhorrence of unbecoming acts, and in his zeal in works for the welfare of others, he was comparable only to himself. Just as the reputation of Rama became familiar to all good men, the greatness of Prithu reached the ears of everyone, including women, through the paeans of praise sung about him by people in all parts of the country.
Oh, well. So we need one more chapter to be read to finish off the thing. And it's zeal
Mm-hmm.
and peons. So Mark, when you finish, then we'll finish for the day.
Okay. Hare Krishna. Chapter 23, the salvation of Prithu, Prithu's asceticism as a vanaprastha. Maitreya said, King Prithu had now completed his work, the mission for which he had incarnated. The towns and villages he had built had now become prosperous. He had provided a means of livelihood for all living beings. He had, for the education of his subjects, set an example of righteous living by his own life. He therefore entrusted the earth, his beloved daughter, now weeping, as it were, at the impending separation, to his sons, and prepared himself to go away to a forest hermitage, accompanied only by his wife, to the great sorrow and disappointment of his subjects. With the same zeal that he had shown in subordinating the world in the past, he now entered the field of asceticism prescribed for vanaprasthas, and practiced it according to its stringent rules without any break or compromise. In adoration of Sri Krishna, he underwent austerities of the most rigorous type, sometimes eating only roots and fruits, sometimes only dry leaves, sometimes only water, and sometimes only air. In summer, he remained amidst 5 fires. In rainy season, he exposed himself to the rain. In winter, he remained in neck-deep water. He slept on the bare floor and patiently suffered every unpleasant or painful experience without a murmur. He observed silence, practiced self-control, observed brahmacharya, and controlled the pranas. These austere practices gradually rid his mind of all impurities acquired from the past. By pranayama, the senses came completely under his control. He was free from all bondage. What spiritual instruction holy Sanat Kumar had imparted to him, according to that, he worshipped and meditated on the Supreme Being. Soon, unwavering and spontaneous devotion to Sri Hari was generated in the heart of that great one, who followed unceasingly the disciplines of divine adoration and worship with great faith and sincerity. In his mind, purified by divine service and perfected by the intense love of the divine growing in it, renunciation and knowledge dawned automatically. With the sharp edge of knowledge, he cut asunder the self-centered I consciousness with which man is innately identified. Having realized the Atman, having abandoned the sense of identification with the body, and having cut asunder the knot of I sense with the sword of knowledge, he abandoned even those spiritual disciplines. For a yogi is liable to suffer a fall from the path only so long as he has not developed unfailing delight and attraction for the Lord's excellencies. That is, there was spontaneous love of God in Prithu, and no external discipline was needed any longer. Prithu, that hero among heroes, then united his Atman with the Supreme Self in spiritual communion, and attained to an abiding Brahmic consciousness, and in due time abandoned his physical body. Pressing the anal region with the heel, he raised up the prana gradually from the Muladhara to the region of the navel, and from there to the still higher regions of the heart, chest, neck, brow, and the Brahmic orifice in the brain. Utterly detached, he dissolved his prana into the universal prana. He also dissolved the physical elements constituting the body into their respective universal counterparts. Air in the universal air, earth in the universal earth, space, akash, in the universal space, and water in the universal water. Then he dissolved those universal elements, the categories, into their respective causes: earth in water, water in fire, fire in air, and air in akasha. He dissolved the mind in the senses, and the senses in the subtle elements, tanmatras, forming their cause, reducing them all into ahankara. They were dissolved in Mahat Tattva, the universal category. Mahat Tattva, the support of all forms, was dissolved in the individual self, the jiva, which is a projection of the Lord's power of Maya. Abiding in his matrix, the Supreme Spirit, the limitations of jivahood too were cast off. Prithu's wife and queen, Archis, noted for her beauty, who had till then never travelled on foot, had accompanied Prithu to the forest hermitage. She was soon reduced very much physically owing to the severe austerity of her husband's life, the strain of serving him, and the eating habits of ascetics which she felt constrained to follow. But she never felt all this as suffering because she could serve her husband and have his affection. Now, on Prithu's death, seeing the lifeless body of her husband, who was the ruler of the whole earth, Archis wept for a while and afterwards placed his body on a funeral pyre erected at the foot of a mountain. Then she bathed in a river, performed the water offering for her husband, saluted the devas who were watching from above, went round the flaming funeral fire 3 times, and entered into the fire with her mind concentrated on her husband. The wives of many devas of an exalted nature sang the praise of Prithu's virtuous wife on seeing her follow that hero into the funeral pyre. While raining flowers in the valleys of Mount Mandara and sounding the musical orchestra of the celestials, these consorts of the devas sang her praise as follows. The consorts of the Devas said, "Glory unto this queen who served her husband devoutly in both life and death, even as Shri attends on Mahavishnu. Accompanying her husband, this great lady, who had lived in a way that inferior women can never do, is bound to attain to realms much loftier than ours. What is there difficult to attain for those who in the course of this short and uncertain lifespan manage to attain that knowledge leading to realization? Human birth, which can bring felicities that culminate in salvation itself, is very difficult to obtain. Having attained it, if a person fritters it away in sense enjoyments, he is indeed a God-forsaken man." Maitreya said, as the heavenly consorts were thus praising her, Archis attained to the same realm as the great king, the most outstanding among the wise ones and devotees. Such was the greatness of Prithu, unique among the devotees of the Lord, whose story I have narrated to you. Whoever reads, hears, or expounds this sacred account with faith and concentration will attain to the same realm that Prithu attained. If a Brahmana studies this, he will be endowed with Brahmic splendor. If a Kshatriya studies it, he will become a king. If a Vaishya does, he will become very wealthy. And if a Sudra does, he will become a very good and respectable person. Whoever they may be, whether men or women, those who hear this account 3 times with faith and devotion will get good progeny if they be issueless, and an abundance of wealth if they are poor. An unknown man will become famous, and an ignorant man a scholar. It saves man from ill luck, and it promotes his good. This account deserves the devout attention of all who aspire to the 4 values of human life: dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. It gives one wealth, reputation, longevity, and heaven. It wards off the evil influences of Kali and fulfills all the wants of man. It therefore deserves to be studied with deep attention and devotion. A king who sets out for battle after hearing this account will gain success and be the recipient of tributes from other rulers, even as Prithu was. Without any other desire in mind, man should hear and read the account of Prithu with a steady, unwavering devotion to the Lord. O Vidura, I have now narrated to you this account, the import of which is a description of the Lord's wonderful excellencies. One who is devoted to it will attain to the same state as Prithu. Whoever hears or reads every day this account of Prithu with faith and reverence, that fortunate person will attain to a deep-seated devotion to the feet of the Lord, which are verily the boat that can take him across the ocean of samsara. Hari Om Tat Sat.
Indeed.
I'll just turn it.
Yeah, do please, Michael, turn it off.